Om Shanti Om. Very good evening to everyone. Today I am very proud to introduce Brother Charlie, who is the first soul came into this knowledge in foreign land outside of India. And he has surrendered his whole life in Babaji again. Brother Charlie has taken sustenance and nurtured by Dadi Janki for many, many years. Now it has been on this spiritual journey for 50 years. Almost 50 years, 1 year less. Brother Charlie is the national coordinator of Brahma Kumaris in Australia. He is the director of 50 centers in Asia, Pacific, Australia. And I know Brother Charlie will never speak that, but when I was in India, I know that he is the first and most important instrument of planning committee of Brahma Kumaris to organize international projects. I remember Brother Charlie, busy in 4-5 hours in the meetings. And then he gives a class. Then we never feel that he was in the meeting for so many hours. In Mount Abu, nobody misses his class. But the main introduction of Brother Charlie is, he has a profound understanding of Baba's knowledge. And most importantly, the way he presents Baba's Gyan with so much clarity, so much humility, he makes each subject, difficult subject, so easy. Suppose you are in a hurry, which we are most of the time. You are hurry and hungry too. And you have been given a pineapple to eat. What would happen? It's difficult, no? Even though it is healthy, but it's difficult to cut and take out the eyes, thorns. What would happen if you are given in a form of fresh pineapple's juice? What happens? Easy to drink, tasty. Brother Charlie is like that. Whatever subject he speaks, difficult subject he speaks, he makes it very easy. He grinds and grinds and grinds, makes it so smooth to understand. And we enjoy that. The quality I always admire in him, he is so humble, so caring, so loving. Sometimes I wonder how much he does, and yet he is light, easy. So do you know the secrets of Brother Charlie? We have selected a topic for tonight: experience a light and easy lifestyle. And he is the appropriate speaker for that. So we will learn today from Brother Charlie. Now I would request our children group to welcome Brother.
To Baba's house. Your presence was a blessing to us. Welcome. It's an honor to have you. Welcome. Om Shanti Charlie Bhai. We are very delighted for you to come here. Om Shanti. Welcome to you.
Now, Rini Ben is welcoming. Now, Brother Charlie, please share your experience, life experience to us. Thank you, Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Shall I try again? Yes, that's better. Om Shanti. And thank you so much for your very beautiful and loving welcome. It's really very special to be in this wonderful gathering, this divine gathering. And special thanks to Sister Kusum, because I think don't know actually how long I've known you, but at least 40 years plus. We both came very young. She was younger than me, but it's really lovely to be here in this really lovely gathering. And I should also bring lots of love and good wishes from the family in Australia. Actually, this is my last night in America. I've been here for about 2.5 weeks. Tomorrow morning, I fly the long flight back to Australia. So it's really special to be with you tonight. And I think the last time I was in Milpitas, actually, I forgot that Sister Kusum actually knew the date. It was July the 4th, 10 years ago, which is remarkable. So what I'd really love to do tonight is just share some of my experiences, and we'll have a little bit of family chit chat because I enjoy the interaction. And perhaps I should tell you a little bit of my story that I actually grew up in Melbourne. And I think, like probably most in this room since a young child, like these little children who, I think I was a searcher type. And at school, my friends gave me the nickname Swami. My friends called me Swami. So I think you can understand what sort of personality I was like. And I went to university and I started architecture at Melbourne University. But this search was really strong in me. And I actually took time out when I was just 20 years old. And I wandered the world, all over the world. And I often see that as my education. I was in Southeast Asia. I spent a long time in India, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. And everywhere, it wasn't a conscious decision, but everywhere I ended up living in religious communities. So I lived with Sikhs and Buddhists and Muslims during Ramadan, and I dipped my toes in the Ganges. That was about as far as I got. I lived in the Himalayas with the yogi. I went to where the Dalai Lama lives. I spent quite a bit of time in places like Afghanistan, Iran, and even Christian communities in Europe. And, you know, as I was searching, I loved everything I heard. I found it really rich, all the traditions. But my question always was, how do you experience? You know, how do you convert beliefs and ideas and philosophy and theories into an internal spiritual experience? And I actually settled in London. I was living in London and working in London. But I used to feel in those days, London was like a spiritual supermarket. You know, everything was available and I was shopping around. And I went to a place called the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain, which is in Hyde Park Corner, if any of you know London. And there was a note that said B.K. Genty was going to give a talk. And I went along. It was a talk on meditation. And quite frankly, as soon as I saw Daddy and Genty then, I could see on their faces that they were different. There was an experience. I could see that they had an experience. So instantly I was attracted. But I did find a lot of the feelings quite familiar. The white dress and these sorts of things seemed very familiar to me. And I was actually only in Gyan for a couple of months. Sadesh Didi gave me the course. The London Centre was so tiny in those days, it would just fit in the front of this room. And the three sisters were Daddy Genki, Sister Genty, and Sadesh Didi. It's a very powerful centre, and maybe about 20 students at the time. So Sadesh Didi gave me the course, and I was her first course in English. And I'd only really been going for a couple of months, and Daddy Genki said, you should go to Madhavan and meet Baba. I think she thought, get him to Madhavan before he runs away somewhere. You know? I was only 22 and I was, you know, young and exploring life. But I went to Madhavan. In my first meeting with Baba, I often mention this because we were spoilt in those days. My first time in Madhavan, I was there 6 weeks, and my memory is Baba came at least 15 times. He would come every second night, and I think I met Baba every time. And I didn't even write down what Baba spoke to me. We just took it for granted. But actually, my first meeting with Baba was in the history hall. And, you know, Baba spoke a Morley, and then we were invited to come and sit in front of Baba. And there was only 3 in the double foreigner season, only 3 of us. And I sat right in front of Baba. And Baba gave me long, long drishti. He would always meet with drishti. And I had an incredible experience that Baba's drishti went so deep and sort of scanned the memory track, you know, scanned the sanskaras and the soul. It was like Baba's vision fell on a part of me that had gone to sleep, you know, in the second half of the cycle. And the original me, the deity me, the elevated self. It's like Baba's drishti sort of massaged that to the surface. And I felt different from that day onwards. It was almost like Baba gave me my self-respect back. And I changed, I think, from that night. And I could probably spend the rest of tonight telling you stories of those meetings and that, because the personal meetings with Baba were so incredibly touching. But I think for me, my quest in Brahman life has always been to, you know, learn Baba's truth, but convert it into an experience, you know, because I really feel, what is meditation? You know, meditation is taking Baba's truth and converting it into a feeling inside. And sometimes I feel, you know, the first step is to know. We all do the course. The second step is to believe. Sometimes in a few weeks, we can know and have faith. That beautiful Morley this morning about faith. But how long does it take me to convert the truth into a feeling inside, into an experience inside? It takes a long time. And sometimes I think the first step is to know, the second step is to believe. The next 998 steps are educating myself how to really taste, really feel that deep inside. And in 1985, Baba actually met the double foreigners, and he made us do what he called the realization course. I don't know whether Kusum better remembers. But that was amazing, because what Baba said was something really fascinating. He said, you know the knowledge, you believe the knowledge, you teach the knowledge, but you don't experience the knowledge. And that touched me incredibly deeply. And then Baba said, every point of knowledge has an associated experience. And what we often do is when we intellectually understand a point, we feel we know it. And in like devotion, once you know something, you feel that's it, I know it and I believe it. But that's the beginning of the journey in Brahman life, in a sense, to unpack Baba's truth so that I really taste it and have that spiritual experience inside. And so many times, you know, Baba says to us, children, churn the knowledge. I actually think, to replace that word, I think Baba's really saying, children, experience the knowledge, experience the knowledge. And I think it's really interesting for us because, you know, our education, everyone here was so educated, we've all been to university. We know so much information, don't we? But spiritual education is completely different. And spiritual education is really just taking one idea, who am I, and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you convert that into an unshakable, unbreakable experience of inner peace that no human being, no situation can really break. And that's really, I think, that's our journey, isn't it? We can know and believe in no time, and we can even teach, but how long does it take for the knowledge to match my feelings? I just don't know I'm a peaceful soul, but I actually feel it at each moment in my life. And I feel, in a way, this is the difference between bhakti and gyan, that I sometimes think bhakti is like two-dimensional, it's knowing and believing, but gyan is knowing and believing and experiencing. And, you know, many times I think, what is the way to really sustain natural motivation in this life? You know, that you just feel naturally enthusiastic. You don't feel, I should wake up, I should do this, I must, you know, that sort of mentality. What's the way to maintain enthusiasm in this life? You know, what's the way to just make effort in a very natural way? I think it's spiritual experience. When we have spiritual experiences, when you think of your Brahman life and you've really felt, tasted Baba's love, you're naturally motivated. And once I went to stay in Shakti Nagar in Delhi with Jagdish Bai. I think you all know Jagdish Bai. Who's read a book of Jagdish Bai's? Most of us. I think he wrote 100 books in his life in about 5 languages. And I actually said to him that I had a lot of questions to ask him. He said, I'm busy. I've only got half an hour. I think we talked till midnight. And I said to him, what do you think for me is the most important thing to keep the momentum of spiritual effort going? Straight away, he said, new spiritual experiences. Learn the art of creating new spiritual feelings inside. And once I was with a group of brothers from foreign countries, and remember the days when we used to meet Baba and we'd walk by and take drishti? Once I was doing that with a few of the older brothers, and Baba stopped us and Baba called us over. And Baba chatted lovely things, but 3 or 4 times he said, create new experiences in yoga. Create new experiences, because what often happens in Brahman life is that we have new experiences when we come, because it's Baba's truth hits us so deeply and we experience Baba's love and connection. But sometimes after a while, we sort of settle into a pattern. And we live off the memory of those experiences rather than really creating new experiences. And I really feel the main thing to sustain us is to really learn this art of creating in the laboratory of your mind, new feelings, new experiences. It's really the way to sustain the self. And I often think of my mind as like a laboratory, you know, where you experiment with new ideas and new feelings. And once Baba actually was mentioning a formula for spiritual experience. And in that, Baba said 3 things. He said, become a point, apply a point, remember a point. And I've often thought about that point because really I feel for the long term in this life, we can follow it like devotees, to be really frank. We can put on our white clothes, we can come along to the Murli, we love Baba, but we can get into a routine, you know, just like we did, but to go deeper and deeper. And really, sometimes I think this is the only time in eternity I can know God as he is, absolutely as he is. So am I more believing in Baba, or am I really tasting and experiencing Baba? And this, the first thing Baba said, become a point. And I feel in a way that the law says the more I learn to become detached from my body, the more I open the door to a whole rainbow of spiritual experiences. And I don't know whether any of you have heard Daddy Ratan Mohini talk about the early days of the Yajna in Karachi. You know, I went to Karachi maybe 3-4 years ago, and I went to Kunj Bhavan where they were there for 14 years. It was such an incredible experience. And I felt so much love in that place. It's like that was the place that Shiv Baba, the ocean of love, came into Brahma Baba and just filled him with so much love that just pulled him away from his past. And then the Daddies did the same, but the atmosphere in that building, it's a school now. When Baba left, it became a hotel, then it became the Russian embassy. But now it's a very fashionable high school, but it was amazing to be there. And Baba created this incredible culture of practice of soul consciousness, because we are all absolutely addicted to body consciousness when we start. It's so deep in us. And Baba would make them sort of wake up in the morning and sit up first, eye the soul into the body, eye the soul move the body, eye the soul bathe the body, trying to really encourage them to really taste and practice soul consciousness. And I, after some years as a Brahmin, really felt I had to go much deeper. And so over some years, I did a lot of experiments in the laboratory of my mind to try and move from this knowing and believing and having faith, the devotional part, the sanskars, to really tasting and experiencing. And the first experiment I did was around the form of the soul, just being a point. And recently someone in Australia said to me that biologists now say, or scientists, that this body, which we're all sitting in our own version, this body, they believe, is made up of 40 trillion cells. 40 trillion cells, little building blocks. The soul is more subtle than one cell. You just think, who am I really? Who am I really? Sometimes we have a gross understanding of the soul as sort of just a point, but the most subtle entity. I exist, but I have no physical size. And I remember when I started, there was a Sakamoli, and in that Baba was like coaching us to become soul conscious. And Baba said, children, wake up early in the morning and start to think, I'm the tiny soul, the tiny spark. and go smaller and smaller and smaller. Baba said, there's nothing smaller than the soul. Let go, step back, withdraw. It was like the whole Moli, Baba was coaching us to have this practice of detaching from this temporary form and really experiencing, fundamentally who I am. And I really feel that this is, if we don't do this practice, Baba still remains a bit distant, because Baba is eternally soul conscious. The whole reason all of us are here is to come close to Baba. Is that true? That's why we're here, isn't it? I think at the heart of Brahman life, we just want to have a closer relationship. If God's eternally on that soul wavelength, and I'm semi-body conscious or even grossly body conscious, once again, I can believe, but I can't really have the quality of connection. And so that first step, and that's why for the first 14 years, Baba was really encouraging the children. And my experience, and I'm sure all of you who've met the Daddies, they had a different vibration, didn't they? Because of that practice, that real fundamental, the bread and butter of spiritual effort to know and experience who I am. Because, sometimes I think that what holds the soul in the body? What holds me in the body? It's just my identification with it. That's all it is. I'm sort of suspended in space amongst these 40 trillion little building blocks. And the quality of Brahma Baba's effort, he made such an effort, he became so detached that he left his body at will and became like an angel. And so I really have done that practice. I love to do it because I find the more I withdraw and feel detached, the quality of peace is something which I think we all yearn for. And I've also done experiments in the feeling of being incorporeal. Because once I said to Didi Manmohini was the co-head with Daddy Prakashmani. And Didi Manmohini was amazing yogi. My experience was, if anyone couldn't meditate, they'd put them in front of Didi, and her drishti, often people had an experience of being bodiless. And I said to Didiji, I was new, and I said, Didiji, Baba tells us every day to practice this, do this, remember this. Sometimes Brahmins have stress thinking, which effort should I make? Because Baba, even this morning, how many things, do this, do this, do this. And I said, of all the efforts, what's the most important? Instantly, she said, to be incorporeal. And then I remembered when Baba left his body, what did Baba say? What were the 3 words that he summarized 32 years of the number one effort maker? Incorporeal, egoless, and viceless. And I've done a lot of experiments in the laboratory of my mind. And I always ask myself, I just don't chant, I'm incorporeal, I'm incorporeal. How does it feel? What is the feeling of my true self? What's the feeling of being incorporeal? And when I really feel I'm non-physical, sitting in this physical body, that I feel naturally detached, naturally uninfluenced. I think most of Baba's children, one of the things we all realize when we come into Gyan is that we're influenced by everything, people's attitudes, people's behavior, situations, everything influences me. And we really want to become, more and more detached. But sometimes, things are happening and I'm chanting the mantra, I must be detached, I must be detached, I must be detached, but my heart's going boom, 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 boom. I'm not detached at all. It's more a theoretical thing. But I found the more I tasted the reality of the eternal self, that I'm actually a non-physical being just sitting in this temporary corporeal form, I felt naturally uninfluenced. I'm present in life, I'm interacting, I'm connecting. And I began to realize that the more you go into the depth of soul consciousness, you naturally acquire all the things that we want, stability, contentment, and really unnatural detachment. You're present, but you're naturally uninfluenced. And I really personally feel that this first step that Baba said, if you want spiritual experience, become the point. I really feel we're a bit superficial in our practice these days around soul consciousness. At the beginning of the Yagya, they had 14 years without service, just exploring the depth of soul consciousness. But I really feel if you want to move forward spiritually, and we are coming into a time in the world where everything is going to be completely unstable, then really this first step is the bread and butter of spiritual effort making, to go deeper and deeper. And the deeper you go, the more you experience. And I would say that spiritual experience is the most natural motivation. The second thing, apply a point. Once Baba Avyak Babdada said he went on a tour of the world. You know how Baba sometimes tours. And he said he noticed the thing that the children need most is to put a full stop. And Daddy Janki once said, she asked a group of us, what's the quality of the 8 jewels? Is anyone here a part of the 8 jewels? Everyone's smiling, but she said to put a full stop in a second. You know how a situation happens, a comment from a person, and it triggers and your mind just runs, your mind just flows, analyzing, processing. And yet it just drains you. It drains your power and drains your spirituality. And to be able, the ultimate state of spiritual power is to put a full stop in a second to a train of thought. And, I've practiced a lot to try and do that. Sometimes it's okay, but sometimes it's not okay. But really, I think we know often that when someone says something and your mind begins to flow on that thing, where it's going to take you. It's going to take you into perhaps an unhappy place, a dark place, but you can't stop. It shows that we've, in a sense, lost our spiritual power. And I think that, the ultimate state of spiritual power in our relationship with Baba is to just put a full stop to unwanted thinking. Because overthinking is the main reason we can't experience much spiritually. The mind, have you ever had the thought, what will the mind be like in the golden age? What will your mind be like? The image I have for the mind in the golden age, when they have a slow motion film of a drop going into a still pond, it just goes so slowly and it hits the pond and then the waves just, I feel that will be like the thought is the drop. And each thought creates a fragrance in your mind. Your mind will be flowing with love. And then it will just filled with peace, filled with purity. Minimal thought and maximum experience. Now, it's maximum thinking and minimal experience. And really, I think that the practice, becoming a point, essential, applying a point, really practice, observe yourself. To me, spiritual effort is practicing. I do one thing over weeks. Because if you try to do too many things, you never see progress in any area. But if you do one thing properly and explore it deeply, and I keep asking myself, how does it feel? So it's not just chanting like a mantra, just having faith. I am converting Baba's truth into an experience. This is when we become spiritually powerful. But the third one was remember a point. And many times I think, why did I come to Baba? Why did we come to Baba? Really, I came because I want to become pure and I want to transform myself. Why am I still here? It's the same answer. Still on the journey. But when I listen to the Muli, the soul, the only soul that's never influenced, the only soul who remains eternally pure, the soul who retains truth eternally, Shiv Baba. What's his advice to all of us? His main advice is remembrance, remembrance, remembrance. And Brahma Baba, the number one effort maker, he's constantly telling us. And during COVID, I decided, I've been a Brahmin for so long, how much do I really have quality remembrance of God? If that's what God's main direction to all of us is, how much am I really doing that? And what is the quality of it? And in a sense, we absorb the ocean of knowledge for one thing, to live in this world and keep my intellect with Baba. And I am really at a place in my journey where I feel if I'm forcing myself, pushing myself, pressuring myself, I'm still doing bhakti. You know, I feel the sanskara of, you know, force, pushing, that sort of thing, pressuring yourself. I feel everything Baba teaches is natural. And what is the natural way to move forward? To me, it's to absolutely fall in love with Shiv Baba. You know, love, I asked Genti Ben once, I said, you've lived with Daddy Genki and stayed in the same room for most of that time for 50 years. What is the main thing you've learned from her? She said straight away, how to love Baba. Because I find when you really fall in love naturally with Baba, you naturally remember. It's a natural result. And when you naturally remember, you naturally transform. And when you naturally transform, you naturally serve, because who you are as a person, your vibrations, your face, your drishti, it's automatically has that sort of influence. And, you know, I am really fascinated by this word remembrance. And actually now in public, I don't talk about meditation anymore. You know why? I think people find it too difficult these days. I think people feel they really yearn to meditate. But when they sit to meditate, their mind is all over the place. And deep down, they feel, I can't do it, I'm a failure. And I find, I say publicly now, we remember God. Because why? Because remembering is the most natural thing of our consciousness. At every millisecond, even as you're sitting here now and I'm speaking, you may remember a child, remember something at the workplace, remember this, you know, instantly your mind travels. It's like the subtle thread of the intellect travels and connects. And over the last few years, I've really discovered that when you remember, three things happen. First, you connect. This is instant. Instantly you connect. Instantly you're influenced by whatever you connect with. And thirdly, whatever you connect with, you experience. You download a feeling. So just imagine there's a thread from your soul here and you travel to a relation, a family member who's in India. It's instant. It's as instant as sitting beside you here. You travel there, you connect with them. And if your relationship is really loving and close, as soon as you connect, you're influenced by that love. You feel relaxed, calm, secure. But if you travel and you connect with a family member and there's not such a good relationship, the instant you plug in the thread of your remembrance, you are influenced by that conflict or difference, and you start to download a bit of peacelessness and a bit of disturbance into your mind. And when we remember Baba, what is happening? I, the soul, remember the one who's full of everything I need. I'm influenced by Baba. And then I live stream Baba into the sacred space of my mind. And really, this is the highest effort. This is really remembering the point in that sense. And that's really what makes the soul really strong. But this subtle thread of the intellect, have you ever experienced, now I know you will have, because You know, I sometimes sit at Amrit Vela and I think I'm absolutely going to have this pure connection with one. And in 3.21 seconds, I've traveled somewhere. Anyone else had that experience? We all know it, right? And it's not even a bad place. But you know why? I think the myth, the subtext of that, the myth that we've all grown up with is that peace, love, and happiness is outside. The family will give me love, my work or something will give me peace. And that's why the habit of this extrovert intellect is just always traveling outside. And, you know, this subtle thread, this is really the whole of our study, is to keep the subtle thread with one. And my experience is that when you remember Baba and you really are influenced by Baba and you live stream Baba into your mind, the vibration in your mind is so light, so pure. It sustains you. It sustains those around you, the people you love, and it sustains the atmosphere. I say to a lot of people, so many people today are really worried about family members because people are going through so much and people have so many mental health challenges, etc. And there's emotional support where you spend so much time looking after them, encouraging them, supporting them, and they feel better. And then tomorrow they come back and they're back. They've lost that. And you encourage them again, they feel better, and tomorrow they come back again, feeling down. Spiritual support is when really the way we can help ourselves, our families, our communities, our world is to keep a good connection with Baba, keep our stage elevated, because your vibration does the work. The more I go on, it's like the perfume of your mind just fills the atmosphere and it does its own work. It really does its own work. And to me, the laws of remembrance really say, the first law is pay attention to what you remember. At the heart of spiritual effort is attention. And to me, it's not a stressful thing, but just watching in a gentle way where my intellect is traveling to and plugging into. The second law says, whatever I remember, it will influence me. And the third law says, whatever influences me, that's my stage, that's my feeling. So fundamentally, my stage is based on what I remember. And if you don't feel happy, if sometimes you're feeling a bit flat, there's only one question to ask yourself, only one question. What have I been remembering? What have I plugged my intellect into? You know how sometimes you have a worry about something, a concern about the future and anxiety, or a little bit of tension with a person and you dwell on it? It's like your mind just plugs into that thought and that worry. And then you watch your whole stage come under the influence of that. And then we feel flat, we feel empty. And, you know, when we remember Baba, I think that we remember Baba, we're influenced by Baba, and then we have that. It's like Baba's qualities really shower through me. And so over the last few years, I've been really trying to keep remembrance in relationship, you know, in workplaces, in situations, service situations. And one thing that I really loved was once when Baba met Daddy Nirmala Shanta. And she was incredibly sweet. Who met Daddy Nirmala Shanta? Yeah, she was incredibly sweet. And Baba said to her, she sat in front of Baba. She was in her 90s. And Baba said to her, "You're busy, aren't you?" She said, "Yes, Baba." And Baba gave her drishti, more drishti. And then Baba said, "You're very busy, aren't you? Probably like Silicon Valley, you know." And she said, "Yes, Baba, I'm very busy." And then Baba said a thing that really touched me. Baba said, many drops make an ocean. The drops of remembrance make an ocean. And Baba gave her practical advice. When you finish a meeting and walk down the hall, remember Baba. When you go to get a glass of water, remember Baba. All those little drops, if you collect them during the day, you build your account of yoga, you build your account of remembrance, you feel stronger. And because we are karma yogis, we have to live in this world. And then as I was practicing, I began to observe that, you know, when you meet somebody and you walk away, often you analyze what the conversation was said, or you process, you know. So rather than going to Baba, we sort of get caught, in a sense, in overthinking, over-analyzing, processing. Really, I feel that do this one thing. Just really practice in those moments, even if you have to go to the restroom when you walk there, whatever you're doing those moments, when you're cooking, go to Baba, create a habit of remembrance. You know, in psychology, they say, if you do something 20 times, it becomes a habit. Personally, I feel you have to, do this habit 100,000 times. But if you do it and your natural mental position is when you're mentally free, you go to Baba, rather than processing your accounts, processing your feelings, thinking about someone's behavior, thinking about something I have to do. Really, this is the seed of becoming a real yogi and really strong spiritually, because it's going to help us as we go into the future. And what I also began to do was, you know how in the morning you listen to the Morley and you think, yes, I'm going to remember Baba throughout the day. And you get to lunchtime and you think, oh gosh, hardly remembered Baba at all. Anyone had that experience? We all have, so don't worry. But I think what I decided was to do little chunks. So after the Morley, the 10 minutes that I have, see how much can I remember Baba? As I prepare breakfast, how much? As I go on the train or I drive to work or whatever, how much am I going to remember Baba? Just give you these little moments, 10 minutes, half an hour, and actually you notice you're building up your account. And I can say that when you do that, you really feel better about this life, because fundamentally, I feel there will be a time we will all think, I knew God, what did I do with my time? That account is going to come in front of all of us. Baba has come, we've recognized Baba, but how did I use my time? And we have to be these karma yogis because we have to work and look after family. But sometimes my mind is so engrossed in that. And, we don't remember Baba. And sometimes I also have the thought that, when we meditate, we've got so much going on in our lives, we process our lives, how I'm feeling, what's going on. And I think sometimes Baba comes along in the morning, says, good morning, child. This is happening, that's happening. Oh, you're busy. I'll go and talk to someone else. Really, I think, we're so self-absorbed. My life, my feelings, my family, my story. This is the life to really spend time with Baba and really build God's fundamental direction is remember me. Build up the account of remembrance. And I feel when you do that, if you make that effort, drama will just take you forward. Because it's like you will get blessings from Baba and the divine family too in your life in every way, because it's the fundamental direction that Baba is giving us to practice. And so the formula, become a point, apply the point, the full stop, and remember Baba, the point. And I think that when your mind is flooded with new spiritual feelings, the more experience, the less you overthink, then you're naturally motivated. You're naturally motivated. Yes, it takes time and it takes attention. There's no doubt about it. So I could keep going and going, but I did say at the beginning, it'd be lovely if anyone wants to make a comment or ask a question. Please feel free. It'd be really lovely to hear from you. Yes, please. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, hello. Brother Charlie, have you ever conducted any scientific research on Raj Yoga meditation?
No, I'll tell you. Is this on? It's still on? Okay. Are you sure? Yes, it is. Oh, sorry. No, it's interesting you say that because I was in Colombia about 5 years ago in South America. And they have this huge symposium. And people come from all over South America, spiritual symposium. And one of the speakers was Daniel Goleman, who wrote Emotional Intelligence. He's from Harvard, and he was telling me that in the last few years, there's been 3,000 studies on meditation. And he knows the Brahma Kumaris, and he said, I couldn't find one study about. He told me. And which I found really quite interesting for whatever reason, but it just shows, he maintained that there's more scientific research into the effects of meditation than almost any other area of science. 3,000 studies, he said, in so many years. And he's wrote a book that is meditation. He wrote a book, and I can't remember the name, but meditation doesn't just relax you, it transforms you. And he's trying to prove it scientifically, because we live in that world. People want scientific proof. I don't need it myself, but people they sort of helps in that way. But as far as I know, I think in India there's a few, but what Daniel said to me, he wanted studies that were really rigorous, those scientific studies that are really done properly. And him and a neurologist from New York wrote this book about the effects of meditation, how meditation actually transforms your personality. Yeah, so. Yes.
Be able to at least hear the question, because I'm quite close by. I'm just intrigued. Yeah, for everyone else. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Just intrigued. You spent a lot of time with people from different religions. You talked about how you spent time with Muslims, with Sikhs, with all of these different things. At the end of the day, their journey is trying to take them to a similar path. What do you think makes the Brahma Kumaris so much more special as you were going through your search of devotion that led you down one particular path versus trying to find a path through one of the more mainstream religions at the time?
One of the things I really love about Baba is that Baba gives respect to all traditions. I think it's so important that we really give regard to all religions, genuinely, not superficially, not namesake, because to me, soul consciousness is about respecting all human souls, no matter where they're at, no matter what is their journey. But, I think one of the things, when you go to all religious groups, they'll talk about love, they'll talk about peace, they'll talk about happiness, all these things. Only Baba talks about purity. And Baba really, the way Baba talks about purity, because in a sense I see Baba teaches us truth. And when we apply truth, purity is the fragrance when we live truth. You know, and I don't just mean a sort of a celibacy, I mean a whole purity of intent and purity of attitude, purity of thought, cleanliness, that sort of real cleanliness. And I think, you know, there's many people in the world who are much better speakers than us, as we all know. They're brilliant intellects, but I personally feel no one can create an atmosphere like the BKs, you know? Because I think when we meditate together and stuff, that vibration is amazing. It's amazing. I remember once I was in Chennai and they had a meeting of 60,000 people meditating under a tent. It was absolutely amazing atmosphere. And we've all been in Diamond Hall sometimes when it's just an incredible feeling. And I mean, obviously, you know, the real thing is that, you know, Raja Yoga is a connection with God. It's a direct connection. It's not through a prophet, soul, or saint, or anyone like that. In knowing that, you know, I feel this is my truth, this is where I belong, but we have respect for everyone and where they sit in the tree. And I think that's, you know, because religions are notoriously intolerant people, religious people, unfortunately. You would think that they would be tolerant, but unfortunately they're notoriously intolerant. And I really feel it's important for us to be really big-hearted and that soul-conscious drishti, that every human soul is my brother, you know, a brother's soul. I really, you know, when I was traveling on that journey and I used to write, I used to keep diaries, and I had this sort of dream in my mind. You know, when you're young, you're very naive and innocent in a way, that a group of young people from all countries would renounce their nationality and just become citizens of the world and just go to places to help the places that need, you know. Otherwise, we're so body conscious about my background and my culture. And quite frankly, all cultures have a superiority complex at the end of the cycle. Unfortunately, we're the best, you know, all of them. And it creates this world that we're having at the moment. But I think, you know, obviously the connection with Baba, but the power of purity is an incredible power. Amazing power. You know, once I remember Baba said that purity is the method to regain self-respect. Purity is the method for real happiness. Purity is the method for spiritual power. And Baba said that's how the prophet souls could establish their religion, because they had that purity. They had so much opposition, but their purity enabled them to, you know, face all that incredible opposition. Is it?
Good evening, Brother Charlie and Sister Kusum and everyone here. I am originally from India, Chennai, and I have come here on a visit for a holiday. I pray every day in the morning. Soon after we have a shower. Everyone in the family, it's a religious thing, and we belong to Jainism. Though we pray, we do pray, but Sister Rini happens to be my sister-in-law. I know she's been practicing Brahma Kumari. This June, July, I had the opportunity to visit Mount Abu, Madhuban, and the World Conference. Also, I just went for the interest of Rini because she was practicing. But when I came here, when I was observing her, and she was so deep into it, so it drew my interest. And in the last 10 days, I've probably spent more than 20 hours with her, trying to be soul conscious. I feel that this is something that takes you deep inside you which no religion takes you. This is more about yourself, more about knowing you, more about how to become a better and a better person that you can be. I have started beginning to enjoy it, and I hope I don't get influenced by the external world once I go back to India into my routine. So there's a big fear in me, what's going to happen next. So I'm here for another few days and then I'm back. So when I'm back, I'm really scared if I'm going to get lost.
You won't get lost.
There are many centers in Chennai as well for Kumaris.
Hundreds.
Yes, there are. But right now, because Rini's there and I have fixed a time with her as well between us, so where she can give me the knowledge on YouTube and Zoom. Zoom. So I hope I don't get lost. That's the only fear which I have in me. What's going to happen next once I'm back home? That's what my wife wants. And I wish it could.
I'm sure you won't get lost. Will he get lost? Do you think he'll get lost? No, see, they all say. But I think it's so true that I really, as I was saying, I feel there's value in all the traditions, but religion is different from real spirituality. Religion can be a whole set of rituals and practices, but spirituality, as you said, every day you're learning about yourself. And what I've learned is that with the scenes of life, we become a detached observer. That is such a state of wisdom. I, the soul, sit and I watch the scenes of drama. With all other people, I become a benevolent observer. Really, the way to clear my mental accounts with all people is to be benevolent, have good wishes and pure feelings. But for myself, I become an honest observer. And to see myself objectively is one of the hardest things because all of us have so many blind spots, We can't see ourselves because a part of body consciousness is we feel bad about our weaknesses, so we deny them to ourselves. And yet, I think in this life, you begin to really see who you are. And our biggest blind spot is our beauty. Our biggest is to really see that the original nature of the soul is so beautiful. And that's what Baba comes to mainly remind us. And when I can accept my beauty, I can see my weaknesses and what I need to change. So every day, it's like, I love it. You're learning about yourself. We're not just going along to attend the muli, just listen and let it go in one ear now. I'm constantly observing. And to me, effort is this gentle observation of my thoughts and my feelings and to take full responsibility. Ultimately, a BK takes full responsibility. I don't project on any other person for how I feel. As soon as I start projecting and blaming, I've stepped out of truth. I'm under the influence of falsehood. And it's, it needs courage to follow this life, actually, because it's much easier to blame everyone else, isn't it? Just project it on everyone else. But here, I have to take responsibility. No matter how people behave or how they are, ultimately, I choose my thoughts and feelings. But that's how we transform and that's how we change. And it needs patience. And once Daddy Janki said, you need 3 things for Brahman life. The first is patience. The second is patience. And guess what the third one was? More patience. Is it true? You need a lot of patience. And I was sharing this morning because I was in Florida this morning. And when I started for just a few months and I was with a friend from Australia. And Daddy asked us, what have you learned after 3 months? What have you learned? And my friend said, Daddy, I've realized how incredibly body conscious I am. And Daddy went, right, correct. Because the more you understand the soul, you realize, quite honestly, we're just so body conscious. All that sensitivity, that delicate nature, feeling offended, hurt, insulted, it's all gross body consciousness. And we're here to really clear these accounts. I think, yes, Mukesh, bye.
Thank you, Brother Charlie. Your talk has been enlightening. I really like the point about creating new spiritual experiences. What I'm curious about is, in your journey in Gyan for the last 49 years, how has your meditation experience from the early days in Gyan changed over the years to today, right? Like when you experience meditation now, I'm really curious what sort of the big contrast difference?
I think that when I started, I would really try to sit down to meditate using, becoming soul conscious. But I feel now more it's who I am. It's not so much something you're practicing, it becomes who you are. And to really carry Baba into your life. And I think sometimes our bhakti sanskaras around God deceive me a little bit, because sometimes it's like we just meditate on a point or a concept or a belief or an intellectual idea. We're actually in a loving relationship with a real conscious being. And sometimes I think we make it very formal. And when we do, the mind will wander, or the mind becomes dry, And when the mind becomes a bit bored meditating, it starts to want to go back to other experiences in the old world. You have to be creative. And that's why if you knew Daddy Janki, her mind just was on this constant churning. Because when you churn the knowledge, when I started, she told us when the yagya began, she used to read the Muli 10 times because she started 6 months after the rest of them. I think many know that story. So I decided, okay, I'll read the Muli 6 times a day. And I had a job at London University at that time, and I used to read it in the morning, then read it on the bus, read it at morning tea, read it at lunchtime. That was an amazing experience, because I realized when I first read it, I enjoyed it. And the second read, I saw the themes that Baba was building and how all the points connect. By the third reading, I could feel, it was making me more soul conscious. By the fourth or fifth reading, it was more of an experience, and by the end, it was more like meditation. The way we meditate is we go so deep, we unpack the knowledge to the point of experience. As Baba said, each point of knowledge has an associated experience. So when I absorb the truth that who I am as a soul, and experience that I live in a state of complete peace. When I absorb the truth about Baba, I experience the highest quality love. It's with me in my life. And that's the main thing I would say for me. I try to make it really natural, because when it's natural, it's sustainable. It's sustainable. If you're sort of pushing, forcing, at some points you get tired, worn out, lose enthusiasm. The seed for me is every morning to sit in front of the ocean of love and allow myself to be completely loved. And I notice when I do that, I just settle down completely. The whole inner world just cools down. You feel really content, really satisfied. And if you don't taste that love, don't panic, don't worry, but what is blocking it? If I'm in front of the love I've looked for half a cycle, this perfect relationship with the soul, we're the old souls, we've searched and searched, and I can't taste it. This is knowledge. What is blocking? It's always a sense of unworthiness, not being good enough, not being pure. This sanskara we've collected in devotion so deeply. And I often have the image, we've gone into all the temples and religious places. God, you're so pure, you're so great, you're so divine. I'm so low, I'm so impure, I'm so this, We've reinforced this state of lack of self-respect. Why do we have this crazy world we're living in now? Why is this world so crazy? Because there's 8 billion souls with a dysfunctional relationship with themselves, with no self-respect. If I don't have self-respect, will I respect other people? Will I respect society? Will I respect the environment? I don't think so. And I, really to make that relationship. So I think at first I was really formal when I meditated. And often we just follow like the meditation commentaries, like a mantra. And you'll get bored. You get completely bored. You've got to be creative, and you've got to keep delving beyond just the belief into the experiential. Educate myself how to experience. That will keep you enthusiastic, motivated. But I would do when I did that Incorporeal one, I did months and months and months, just one experiment. And sometimes I just felt in this world, but completely uninfluenced by this world, but still connected to the life, not cut off. It was such a fantastic experience. And you feel naturally close to Baba. You've got time because you're sort of uninfluenced. You've got time for Baba in that way.
Thank you so much. I've been churning this question in my mind for the last 5 minutes. You talk about the experiments in the laboratory of your mind, and to pick one. I find that, and work on it for months, but I find that my mood shifts and my memory isn't that great. So at some point I may remember, oh, I have to apply a full stop. So that person said that to me, but let me apply a full stop. But another time I'll think, oh, I have to build up the ocean, create an ocean. Is that, but that's doing several experiments at the same time. Is that a scattering thing, or is that useful, or?
No, I don't think you're doing the experiment of remembrance or whatever, but you have to pay attention to where your mind gets pulled and not overreact to yourself. What I've learned is that, sometimes as a BK, Baba set such a high standard. Don't have pure thoughts, don't have bad feelings. You only have pure thoughts, and have good feelings for everybody. And if I have bad feelings for someone, or there's impure thoughts in some way, we react to ourselves and we feel shame, or we feel guilt, or we feel not good enough. This is the biggest obstacle in Brahma. A knowledgeful soul knows I'm in a life of transformation. I've left the shores of the old world, but I haven't arrived at the other side yet. I learned to be gentle with myself. Just be kind to yourself. Really be kind. To take up this life is an incredible thing. It takes amazing courage, really. So be gentle with yourself. And if you have a few bad days where you're not feeling so good, don't worry. It'll come back again. But sometimes we're very harsh on ourselves. And this makes you weak. I often feel the 5 vices come to every human soul. Every single: anger, ego, greed, lust, and attachment in their various forms. That will come to all of us. It's how I react to them. And if I'm a very sort of not really knowledgeful and the devotion, I then feel shame, guilt, fear, lack of self-respect. But a knowledgeful soul won't overreact, will learn from the rubbish as the rubbish comes out, and it comes out. And, sometimes, to be frank, you start Brahman life and you fly along for a while, and then the rubbish seems to be worse than before you were a BK. And you think, hey, something's not working here. It's normal. It has to. The rubbish will come out, because I believe our bhakti sanskar is to suppress. So, we don't really transform at the beginning, but we follow things, but we suppress a lot. And at some point, it comes out. But once again, not to overreact, not to overreact. You know, I even remember Sister Genti telling us once, she said 6 years after she was a BK, she felt a lot of anger in the form of irritation. And she said, I've never even been angry in this life. And what this means is we have to manage the process of change. It's not just the aim to become a pure soul. We have to manage that at different times, the rubbish emerges, something in drama triggers some sanskara or feeling. Don't give up, don't worry, but use Gyan and yoga. Because often then we drop Gyan and we just get emotional. We just drop Gyan so quickly and we get emotional. But if you remain knowledgeful, if I look at myself when I started, I sort of would go like that. And after a while it was like that. And now I feel it's, it takes time and it takes patience. But, I say to everyone where I am in the Asia part of the world, never, ever give up, no matter what happens. This is your truth. Just stick, no matter how strong, sometimes the sanskaras are within or some situations outside, never, ever give up.
Thank you, Brother Charlie. That was really interesting for whatever you've been giving us. But I wanted to say, just to give my thoughts. I've been associated with this Milpitas Center for almost like 20 years now. And we've been getting Palna from Sister Kusum, who's the best that we think in terms of the knowledge that we gain. But my comment and my thought was that learning this knowledge comes very, very well once you're reading the Murli. Because reading the Murli actually opens up your mind. See, we feel that sometimes Baba says the same things in the Murli every day, but actually there is a much deeper meaning in that. And once we start analyzing and thinking about it and start practicing it, it really settles your mind and really, you feel very calm and peaceful. Yoga is, of course, yoga is very, very important, I think, along with this knowledge, but to kind of inculcate the thoughts behind it, Absolutely. But I think reading is, I would say, and the other comment I wanted to say, the brother did raise, what is the difference between Brahma Kumaris and other, factions of religion? I think here, it just provides information in any shape and form in all languages. I think that's even very powerful. It gives you access to anyone in their own language. So that's a very big thing that I just wanted to, give my thoughts here. Thank you so much.
When I started, we were always taught to meditate for half an hour before the Murli. This was Baba's system, not arrive as the Murli starts. That's not the way to do it at all. Because the teacher is soul conscious. And all of us in this room had the experience that when you're soul conscious, the Murli hits you so deeply that if you arrive and you're a bit body conscious, a bit tired, it's ordinary. It can sound ordinary. It's not ordinary, of course, but it's my state of mind. And that's why this soul consciousness. Didi Manmohini, when Baba would speak the Murli in the 70s, at the end of the Murli, every Murli, she would pull up a little push, those little cushions, do you remember that? And Didi would sit and look at Baba like this. Many times Baba said, Baba can speak to you in public, but only you understand what Baba's saying. Because when we're in tune, when we're really soul-conscious, it hits. But if we're semi-body conscious, it's exactly true what you say. We don't really, and I think I've understood something, and then later I listen to the Murli and I get a new understanding and a deeper understanding. And I think, the teacher is eternally self-conscious. If I want to absorb the truth, I've got to be on the same wavelengths as the teacher. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I'm more than happy to go on, but you'll have to tell me if you've got time. It's fine. There's a sister right up in the back row who's had her hand up for some time.
Om Shanti, Brother Chipu. Welcome to BK Milpitas Center. Thank you for taking time and for wonderful talk. So I listened to the talk, and not only today, but I've attended Brothers Retreat where I really enjoyed your talk and very practical. So enjoyed those talks. Today, one question that came to me in the talk that you mentioned: point, apply point, remembrance point. So it's a conflict of a Brahmin life or non-Brahmin. The question is, once I apply as a point, why there is a need for remembering? Remember, tend to connote it's an effort. It's not natural. So even you took example of a sister who's busy, doing work, and then in between those, so it's Baba's work. Try to. Can you hear me? So should I start over? Or? Yeah. So the applying that knowledge of becoming point, applying, and remembering. So we took an example of sister where she's doing the Baba's work, but still in between, why Baba has suggested her to remember. Right? It's Baba's work. So remember is an effort. It feels like I forget. It's not natural. Now I become I need to remember again. So that's our conflict of in our life too, right? At work, I forget. So now I need to make an effort to remember. I sit in Amrit Vela, fantastic. Right? I go on my day, I forget. It becoming effort. So why that application of point not become natural?
It's such a deep habit, body consciousness. You've scored most of your sanskaras for 63 births. It's so profoundly deep. And the main sanskaras, there's many sets of sanskaras in the soul, but the devotional set, the body conscious set, your intellect just goes to bodily beings because that's sustained you. It's all temporary. And that's why you have such deep dependence on bodily beings. So it's sort of like a magnet for your intellect to bodily beings or to your own body or to situations. And that's why attention, it just has to pay attention. And I just be patient, just keep with it. Because we have to be karma yogis. And I think that if you keep practicing, you'll find you'll just increase your amount. This morning Baba said to keep a chart of remembrance. If you don't really want to write a chart, but the whole idea of that is to create the sanskara of attention. So when you're at work and your mind is wandering, and you'll feel sort of more sustained throughout the day. You never ever feel like this. Because it's true, sometimes you may go hours and you suddenly think, my goodness, I've hardly had one thought of Baba. Don't worry, remain on the pilgrimage. This is the pilgrimage of remembrance. And And the more you remain, the more, but that first lesson is absolutely crucial. I would say the reason we don't feel that close to Baba is a lack of soul consciousness. The Maha Mantra Baba gives us, in a sense, or the mainstream mantra is, consider yourself to be a soul and remember Baba. And that's where I think our soul conscious practice is very superficial, quite frankly. So then it's not easy to remember Baba. It's, thank you. I think it might be the same problem. Do you mind coming closer to the front? If that's okay.
Brother, you just mentioned that we should create new experiences every day. When you say new experiences, how would we know that this experience is complete? So, for example, if we create detachment, so how would we know that this is something that, because sometimes we do still have some bhakti samskar. So it's kind of in between what Sister Rini calls a DK Harry level. So we are not soul conscious, but still in between. So how do we know? Because sometimes it feels like, is it real or it's an imagination? How do we distinct? Is it real or imagination?
It's real because, I mean, you have experiences all the time in your life. You feel things in your mind. So they're absolutely real experiences. And initially, some experiences may just come for a few minutes, for a day, but after a while, we learn how to create them. It's like a lot of Brahmins in their spiritual childhood have some incredible experiences, almost like you get help from Baba. And then it's like, you don't get so much help. You have to learn to create them through your gyan and your yoga. You have to create. And it's almost just, your mind is your whole world. Your whole life meets in your mind. Your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, your relationships, your memories. You're gently, with love and wisdom, taking back the mastery of your mind and experimenting with creating new feelings. And when you really remember Baba, practice soul consciousness, these things, you will feel more detached. It's a real experience you're having. And after a while, it becomes your permanent nature. It becomes who you are. Or you will become more tolerant, or you will become more benevolent. And actually, the more you do, the more you feel better about yourself. But it's definitely, that's why Daddy Janki said the three things are, you need a lot of patience because we live in a quick fix world. We want it now. No, we don't want it now. We want it yesterday. You know, but it, you know, Sister Kusum and I have been up for nearly a half century, you know, and we're still, it's like, I think just keep practicing, keep learning, keep open, keep positive. If you fluctuate a bit, don't overreact. As I said, it's not just having the aim of becoming pure, it's managing the process of becoming pure. Not giving up when you have a bad period where you feel a bit down or feel a bit hopeless or feel you're going backwards. You're not going backwards. But all these thoughts can come. We're traveling from an extreme body conscious state back into my truth once again. It takes time.
How do we know one experience is complete? So if we are experiencing detachment or practicing detachment, how do we know we should go to the next one now?
I think that, you know, a knowledgeful soul feels their pulse. So, you know, you notice that you need something in life. Let's say you have in the workplace, you feel quite negative towards somebody, and you realize that I have to have more good wishes and pure feelings. So it automatically, the drama shows you where you need to pay attention. I think that's my own experience. And if we take the signals from drama, then I think you'll find naturally it'll happen. Anyway, thank you. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Brother Charlie, from my bottom of my heart. See how busy he is. He was in Florida till afternoon. He came here and on the stage. And it's 11:15 for Brother Charlie. And brother, you have shared very deep points. I have taken one point, which is the best, to whom we are plugged on. After knowing Supreme, no need to plug on to anyone. So brother, thank you. Thank you